Welcome to the Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. This is a weekly podcast which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or about to lose someone you know, or perhaps you're simply trying to help someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope, and at times humour. In the previous episode of the Grief Pod, I was joined by clinical psychotherapist Anthony Whelan, who spoke about his own experience of grief and bereavement following the loss of his partner, Anne-Marie. He also talked about how especially triggering Christmas can be and how difficult it could be to navigate. But the new year can be equally triggering when you've lost a loved one and can be exceptionally challenging. Anthony has joined me again this week to talk about why heading into a new year can prove so difficult for some and how you can navigate it both yourself and you can help other people get through what can be a lonely time as we go into the new year. Anthony, thank you for coming on again.
Pleasure.
What is it about the new year that can just be so difficult for some people?
I think what makes it most difficult is that the new year, everybody always talks about new beginnings, New Year's resolutions, looking forward to the new year. And there's an implicit leaving things behind. Mm-hmm. And when you've lost somebody, that can be terrifying. It can create a lot of guilt. The whole thought of kind of moving forward can be, does that mean I'm abandoning my loved one? So it can be a very, very kind of complicated process that people go through. And the whole, as I say, environment of new starts, new beginnings, taking new things on can be extremely challenging for somebody who's not, and we should never be ready to let go of a loved one. We do have to live our lives for sure, but it doesn't mean we have to let go of the person we've lost. But it can feel like that sometimes.
It feels forced.
Yes.
Yeah, and it feels like, no, it's a new year, so it's all going to be great. It sort of seems so conflicting as well, this sort of bright, shiny, new beginnings. It's so conflicting to me with grief because you're sort of going, you can't just jump. And I suppose it goes back to what I just said about forcing stuff. You can't just jump out of your grief and go, oh, okay, it's New Year. Yeah, it's all great.
Yeah.
But that can add to how you're feeling.
We can feel that that's the expectation. It's the 1st of January now. You have to kind of, shake yourself off and get up and move on with your life, which is just a crazy way of thinking, really. Because someone we've lost when they're important to us, like they become part of our fabric. The fact that they're no longer kind of sitting by our side talking to us in a physical way actually doesn't mean they're gone. I know we mentioned in the last episode, as long as someone's in our heart and in our minds, they're still present. They're still with us in some shape or fashion. So it can feel very, very almost like a betrayal of the person you've lost, to be kind of thinking about the future, thinking about new things, thinking about moving on. And as I say, I think really for people, it's to understand that you can kind of plan your life, you can plan what I'm going to do, what changes I'm going to make, how I'm going to live as positive and healthy a life as I can in this new place, while still keeping the person present in your heart and in your mind, honouring them, honouring everything you had with them, and kind of doing those two things together, I think, is the secret.
Is the key. And just from the point of view of other people, like, how can you explain to them that this person doesn't want to be there at 12 o'clock, doesn't want to be like, yay, wearing 2026 glasses, or,
that
they're just not feeling...
Again, and we mentioned that it's about giving people the time and space they need. Sooner or later, if we've lost a loved one, we do need to kind of, face it and deal with it and process it. But at any given time, especially times like Christmas and times like New Year, times like birthdays, times like anniversaries of the passing, that's not always the time to be kind of, looking to the future. Sometimes it is, we just need to stop honor the memories, just sit in that space of like, wow, that was incredible. We have an inscription on Anne-Marie's gravestone. It's actually a Dr. Seuss quote, which says, cry not because it's over, smile because it happened.
Yeah.
The truth is we do both, and
Yeah.
it's very healthy and it's very positive to do both. But sometimes at these times of the year, it can feel, oh, you're not allowed now to be sad about it. You have to be kind of looking forward and you have to be happy. And that's just not realistic. So it's if somebody is in the position where they have lost someone, where they're finding it difficult, giving them the time and the space is absolutely key, whilst at the same time making sure that they know that you as a family member or as a friend are there for them whenever they need it, and when they want to talk, that you're ready to listen. I think that's really, really important.
The whole thing as well is the distance, isn't it, as well? The new year, you sort of, you feel, and anniversaries and birthdays, because it's a very marked time that you're there, but they're not here. And the distance is growing between the two people, between the person who's still alive and the person who's passed.
Yes. Especially kind of, when you have very special memories with the person you've lost at occasions like that. As I said before, Anne-Marie was like life and soul of the party. So something like New Year's Eve was just, I was never... before I got together with Anne-Marie, much of a New Year's Eve person. But once I was with Anne-Marie, I was all about New Year's Eve. But because that was just what we did. It's being able to honour that kind of memory, how precious those memories are and how special those times were. And if you need time and space to do that, that's absolutely fine. It's also absolutely fine if somebody kind of goes, no, I still love New Year's Eve and I'm going to go out and I'm going to party and I'm going to have a great time. Because sometimes people can then feel guilty about, oh, I'm enjoying it and my loved one isn't here and I shouldn't be. But that's not right either, I often kind of think, what would your loved one want? Would they want you, sad? Or would they want you happy out enjoying it just like you always did,
Yeah, but that's hard to do sometimes.
Yes.
Like you can go, well, look, and actually when people say that, it's nearly worse. Oh, well, they wouldn't want you being all sad. They'd want you to be going out. And you're sort of going, well, I get that, but this is how I'm feeling.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the piece. It's about giving people that, whichever space they're in. Because the other thing that can happen is that it can change from year to year, as you say, as the distance gets greater. And it's, again, we have this expectation that, well, each year it'll be a little bit easier. And that might, by and large, be true, but then sometimes it won't. I mentioned the last time that, Anne-Marie's 5th anniversary, have no notion why, was a really, really tough one for me. So we have to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, and we have to acknowledge what we're feeling, and to be able to express it, because ultimately that's the only way that we can kind of process these things.
I think as well, there's, with the January, when you think about New Year, it's sort of cold, it's sort of dark, it's not as social as Christmas, at least if you feel like going out or doing something or calling to friends or there's family around. It's Christmas is more people, whereas January becomes this sort of bleak.
Yes. Yeah. Can be.
It can be quite a lonely time.
It can, and for a whole load of reasons. Like people can be just, financially strained after Christmas. People, who normally maybe go out for a couple of pints at the weekend might be doing dry January and staying in. You have all of that kind of stuff going on, so it can be quite lonely. And I think that's where it's really important that if you're in a place of grief or any place of, distress, it's trying to make sure that you have, doesn't have to be many, 1, 2, 3 people that you can just really kind of open up to, that you can talk to. Because it's in that, it's in the act of talking. I often think when we're talking, by just naturally, we're breathing out as we talk. We don't talk as we breathe in. So the act of talking is letting something out. And it can, facilitate that kind of expressing of emotions, and in that way is how we work through them. So making sure that even in January, which, as you say, can be a very quiet month, it can be a very lonely month, it's dark, it's cold, all of that, that you have those couple of people that you can go and talk to, which can be difficult. It can be so difficult when you're, in a really hard place. The last thing you want to do sometimes is talk about it, but ultimately that's how you
get through
it.
Yeah.
And
should people really, I mean, this whole thing, I mean, I'm not a resolutions person, but there are often things you sort of decide, well, the next year I'd like to achieve this, or I'd like to do that, or I'd like to go and visit there, and they're realistic targets, I guess. But is that something you should be doing if you're grieving? Because then if you don't do it, you sort of feel like you failed?
Yeah, I think when you're grieving, looking to the future at all can be extremely difficult. But I think it can certainly be a positive and healthy thing to kind of have maybe not so much, by this month I'm going to be doing this thing, but just having a general sense of, I'm going to try and, get out and do a bit more exercise, or I'm going to try and kind of watch my diet a bit better. I'm going to try and manage my sleep a bit better, which is a really, really critical piece that we often overlook. So I would say when you're in that place, rather than those kind of, hard and fast, very specific, time-bound kind of goals, because you said the challenge there is that if we don't meet them, then we can kind of feel, I can't even do that now or whatever. It's more just trying to have that softer but still a positive kind of, I want to have a sense that I'm progressing in some shape or fashion. I want to have a sense that I'm managing myself through this process. So be
realistic.
Yes.
Like, don't sort of go, okay, well, I'm going to go and do something that's the most positive thing ever.
Yeah.
But just give yourself the leeway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, I often think of it, the analogy of, if somebody is very kind of, unfit and hasn't been living a healthy life, they're not going to decide to run a marathon next month. But they might decide that, I'm going to start eating a bit better, I'm going to start exercising a bit more, and maybe in a couple of years I might end up running a marathon. So like it's more that kind of a gradual kind of, moving yourself kind of forward at a realistic kind of a pace, at a sustainable pace.
And I think that's the word, isn't it? Sustainable.
Yeah.
Because with grief, you don't really know what's sustainable and what's not.
Exactly. You don't know how much you can take on. You don't know how you're going to feel tomorrow. Sometimes, tomorrow actually, turns out it was a fine day and I got everything done that I wanted to do and, it was grand. Sometimes tomorrow turns out for some inexplicable reason, or sometimes for a reason somebody just said something, or a particular song played and it just brought you back or whatever. So, but again, that's the piece around the flexibility and the sustainability, that there's a gradual kind of a moving forward, but recognising there'll be days where you're just going to slip right back. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I just want to ask you there about the exercise, because you use that analogy. Like, exercise can really, obviously the endorphins, that can be a mood booster. So that is something that is, if you can, factor into,
Yeah, I think there's certainly, when I'm working with clients in therapy, so, we're working through whatever the presenting issue is, where it came from, all that kind of stuff. But I will always say there's three kind of basic things as well. Sleep, really critically important. If we're not getting enough quality sleep, life's going to be tough. So trying to kind of manage that. Diet, not saying that we have to be kind of losing massive loads of weight, but just trying to eat a moderate amount of healthy food and moderate exercise. Now again, depending where someone's starting from, moderate exercise could be a 10-minute walk. It doesn't have to be kind of, world beating or anything like that.
But again, it's something that's achievable.
Exactly, it's achievable. And if you're kind of getting your sleep, your diet and your exercise, a moderate amount of each of those, it's amazing the impact that it has just on your general sense of well-being, your general sense of accomplishment. I did get out for that 10-minute walk today, whatever it is. So I think it's really important to be looking after those kind of basic things as well.
Okay. Again, what can people do in the new year? How can we recognise that somebody needs our help? What can we do? Again, if things are sort of there's not as many gatherings or, Yeah.
I think, for somebody who's working through grief, it's recognizing, what they're going through. And as we mentioned there earlier, it's about trying to, surround yourself with a few key people that you can talk to. And then, for somebody who, is a family member or a friend, and somebody who has lost someone, it doesn't have to be recently. It could be, as I say, years ago. But it's just being kind of conscious of it's a very, changed time of year. It's a very kind of a forced kind of happiness, looking forward time of year, and just bearing in mind that maybe for this person it's going to bring up memories, it's going to bring up challenges, and maybe just saying to them, hey, how are you getting on?
Be aware of it.
Yeah,
I remember actually somebody saying to me, beware of New Year's Eve, and at the time going, huh?
Yeah.
And then totally got it.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's that, So it's watching out for people.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly.
A
Just
little
be
text.
conscious.
Just be.
Yeah.
And perhaps choosing your words like, this year will be better.
Yeah.
Because people don't really want to hear that, do they?
Yeah. It can be, again, for different people, they're in a different place, they're in a different kind of part of the process or whatever. So it's really kind of trying to be aware of where is this particular person at. If you know somebody who's lost someone, where are they at with it now? Not assuming, and maybe asking them. Yeah. And just, it can be as simple as, hey, thinking of you today, I know it's probably a difficult time of year, how are you doing?
Exactly.
It can be
showing.
Yes, exactly.
Showing, rather than...
But showing it, voicing the kind of the awareness that somebody's in a place, and that gives someone an opportunity to go, I'm doing okay, or to go, do you know what, I don't know why this year, but it's really tough.
And then maybe if they don't respond, follow up.
Yes.
In like sort of 2 weeks or something.
Exactly.
Check in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anthony, thank you so much for that.
Very welcome.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. You can listen on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Instagram @GriefPod Series.